I believe the most popular Google search over the last 24 hours or so. How long does it take for an MRI to come back? Welcome into the Monday edition of The Lunch Break here on KDUS AM 1060, streaming on the KDUS AM 1060 app, and you can watch the show over on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel. Chris Schubert with you here, Monday edition of the program. A lot to unpack. Producer Evan is behind the glass, 480-864-1060. A good weekend, Producer Evan? You can just give me a thumbs up. Good weekend?
Good weekend.
Okay, happy for you. You had your family in town?
Yeah.
So hung out with them?
It was a good time. First day it rained in 100+ years on June 1st.
It was the topic of conversation in our department head meeting this morning of monsoon season and when it starts. And we looked it up, and June 13th is when monsoon season officially begins here in the state of Arizona. June 15th, actually. 13 days. That's where I got mixed up. So less than 2 weeks from now, it's officially monsoon season. So the rain is coming. If you can tell, we're doing everything we can to try to not talk about what happened over the weekend in baseball. But you and I both know that that's not going to happen. You and I both know that I have to push the button right now, and I have to talk about what occurred this weekend because it was the worst weekend of the season for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
A series loss at home. Any other weekend, I think, would be the top story. Losing at home to a team like the Washington Nationals. Brendan Pfaadt pitching as poorly as he did on Saturday. That would be the top story. Another bullpen meltdown on Friday. That normally would be the top story. We both know what the top story is today because we await. For the first time, I think, since he's been on the show, producer Evan has 3 screens of Twitter just open just to make sure that if we get the MRI results from Corbin Burnes, he sees it right away.
You probably can't see my head under the computers, and that's just because I'm refreshing Twitter on each one. Just trying to find if we have an MRI result.
It was a bad weekend for the Arizona Diamondbacks. What is going to turn a bad weekend into an absolutely terrible weekend is the results of this MRI for Corbin Burnes. And we'll get into Corbin Burnes here throughout the course of the program. We'll talk about what it could mean. In all honesty, there's a lot to unpack with Corbin Burnes, but none of it we can unpack until we know the severity of the injury, until we know if he is going to miss significant time, how long he is going to miss. Will he be able to pitch again this season? Did he catch it at the right time and things are going to be okay? We know none of those answers as we sit here today. I kind of half anticipated us being able to come on the air and at least have some type of roadmap of what this might look like, but we don't. And we will try to get through it together. We'll keep an eye on it all throughout the course of the program because obviously that means a lot. It's going to determine if we need to shift the expectations for this baseball team, what the rotation then looks like. Does it change what they do at the trade deadline? I mean, there are so many layers that all stem from the results of the MRI later today. Now, they played baseball over the weekend. They lost a series to the Washington Nationals. They lost 2 of 3. They won yesterday, and it doesn't feel like a win because Corbin Burnes gets hurt. On Friday, you have a game that we debated in the pre-show. We debated in the morning meeting. Does this classify as a meltdown? Does this go on the list? Because it is not your traditional run-of-the-mill meltdown that we've been adding to the meltdown meter. This requires a conversation because it's a 6-6 game on Friday, and you turn to Juan Murillo in the 6th inning, and he gets an out, walks a guy, gets a strikeout, and so there's one guy on, 2 outs in a 6-6 game on Friday, and what proceeds to happen is back-to-back 2-out walks, and then the hit that breaks the game open. And so we debated it in the morning meeting, and we decided this goes on the meltdown meter. You got 2 outs in the inning. You have 2 2-out walks, and then you allow the big hit to break the game open. You can't have that happen. That's a meltdown. That goes on the list. Again, it's not your garden variety meltdown. It's not giving up 5 runs in the 7th, 6 runs in the 8th like you did against the Cubs. This isn't 7 runs last week against the Pirates. This is not what we've become accustomed to with the meltdowns, but I think it was just a meltdown in a different variety on Friday. And then Saturday, normally I'd like to come in here and tell you to forget about Saturday's game. I would tell you that those things happen over the course of a 162-game baseball season. You're going to have some clunkers. You're going to have some absolute stinker performances from your rotation. Everybody, it's going to happen once throughout the course of the season. But in the context of what the week had been for the Diamondbacks, losing the series the way that you did to the Pirates, losing on Friday night the way that you did to Washington, and then you give up 9 runs before you get an out. 10 runs total in that first inning. And yeah, the final score says 11-7. You never stood a chance in the baseball game on Saturday. You never stood a chance. You give up a 10 spot in the first inning. The Nationals scored 9 runs before recording an out. I think it's the first time it's happened since like the 1800s or the early 1900s. It had been forever since a team had scored that many runs before their first out of the game. Just bad. And then Sunday, you want to feel good about a win. You want to feel good about salvaging, at least not getting swept at home by Washington. But it comes at a price. And that price is Corbin Burnes motioning to the trainer, Corbin Burnes mouthing to Perdomo, my elbow, looking like he mouthed, my elbow, it's dead. And now we wait. We wait in the worst kind of anticipation you can have. Because we now need to find out if Corbin Burnes is going to be able to pitch again this season.
And it looked like that cutter was down.
Velocity was down.
3 miles per hour there right before he said it. And it's just, it's bad. It's really bad.
The worst weekend of the season for the Diamondbacks. We entered in the series wondering if this team lost 2 out of 3, what would we be talking about on Monday? And this is why you don't just jump to fire the manager. None of this is on the manager over the weekend. It's not the manager's fault that Corbin Burnes gets hurt yesterday. It's not the manager's fault that your starter on Saturday, Brendan Pfaadt, gives up 9 runs in the first inning. You give up 10 overall. It's not on the manager. There's nuance, there's context to all of this. But guess what? If this team doesn't have Corbin Burnes, I don't know where they go from here. I don't know what the expectations are supposed to be. This is a team that's not playing good baseball as it is right now, and we may potentially be taking their ace, their $210 million man, and taking him completely off the table. That's why this MRI is so important. And so we can't just sit here and wait. We've got other things we need to discuss here on the show, but we're kind of just sitting here and waiting for those results. It's an off day today, so you would expect that we would get it at some point. I would expect that we get it at some point during the show today.
I know he went in at 5 a.m.
So he said that. I think it was more tongue-in-cheek that he was making the 5 a.m. MRI comment. Not really sure. But either way, the MRI is going to take place today, and we should know sooner rather than later what those results show and how long he's going to miss. But a terrible weekend for the Diamondbacks. I don't think it can get any worse than that. I honestly don't even think getting swept would be as worse as this. You lose the first 2 games the way that you do, and then you lose Corbin Burnes yesterday.
Had Corbin Burnes just got on that, going out there and got shelled, and you lose all 3, you still feel better about it than the possibility that his season's over today.
His season might be over. Yeah. Like that's where we're at. That's
a real possibility.
It is a distinct possibility that Corbin Burnes has thrown his last pitch of this season for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then that's a whole can of worms that we will try to unpack here today on the show and throughout the rest of the week. But it was bad on Friday. It got worse on Saturday. And you're thinking to yourself, well, it can't get any worse than that. It can't get any worse. I'll tell a little bit of a story. Over the weekend, my future father-in-law, he retired on Friday. It's done. Now it has all the free time in the world starting today. Hopefully he's listening to the program now with all his free time that he's got. So he had a retirement party on Saturday. Now, earlier in the day, I broke my phone. So I did not have the ability to use my phone all day on Saturday. So I get to this retirement party. We're hanging out. I'm with family. I know the Diamondbacks are playing, but I don't have my phone. I can't keep an eye on the game. So my fiance, I take her phone. I say, hey, I'm just going to check the score of the game. I look at the score, and it's 10-0 in the first inning. And I'm thinking in that moment, at this party where we're having a good time, in this moment, it can't get any worse than this. You lose a series to the Pirates. You have a meltdown on Friday. You give up 10 runs in the first inning on Saturday. This is rock bottom. You can't go any lower. But the 2025 Arizona Diamondbacks season had another twist in store because it did get worse. We did go lower because yesterday felt like a rock bottom moment, especially if we learn that Corbin Burnes is going to have to miss some significant time. I mean, I don't see a world where he makes his next start, best case scenario. They're going to have to sit him down for a little bit, but a real legitimate chance that his season is done. It just kept getting worse throughout the weekend.
Would you like one positive note from the weekend?
I mean, if you want to try to spin a positive on the worst baseball weekend of the year, the floor is yours to attempt to make me think positively today.
Yeah, I thought Justin Martinez looked really great in the ninth inning last.
Do you know what's not going to matter? Justin Martinez pitching well in the ninth inning if the Corbin Burnes is missing the rest of the year.
Yes, no, I know.
Everything hinges on this MRI result. Everything. Ryan Nelson, where he goes from here. I mean, everything hinges on the result of this MRI and what it shows. And if it shows bad things and they start talking about second and third opinions, that's not good.
No. If you ever hear the word second opinion
not great.
Or arm specialist,
if you're getting a second opinion, it's because you didn't like the first one. You don't get a second opinion if the first opinion is great.
In fairness,
AJ Puck did get a second and third opinion, and him pitching is still on the table this season. So you are right. We do have an example of that. But my elbow is dead are not words I want to hear uttered from my ace of the pitching staff.
No, that's never a great start.
I never want to see him be as demonstrative in his frustration.
Like, he knew right away.
I mean, he said a word I can't say on the radio.
Yeah.
I mean, he loudly screamed a word that told you that things were not going well.
Which is even crazy because he really wasn't pitching that poorly.
No, but the Abrams at bat before is where it kind of started to look weird. The velocity was down. He felt like he was shaking his elbow out, and then he gives up the hit. And before the ball is even thrown back in, we're kind of doing the show ahead of the show because we're supposed to have a Corbin Burnes segment coming up next. But again, everything is just wrapped into this right now. I don't know how, honestly, I don't know how to evaluate this baseball team right now.
Yeah, what do you look at and say and being like, they've lost 2 or 3 to the Pirates. You lost 2 or 3 to the Nationals. You're now in a position where you've lost the season series to the Nationals. If they lost yesterday, Chris, they were going to have a worse record than the Nationals.
If Corbin Burnes doesn't get hurt yesterday, I think I can dive more into, you just lost 2 out of 3 to the Pirates. You just lost 2 out of 3 to the Nationals. Where do we go from here? Like, what is it going to take for this team to turn it around? Like, how do they get back on track? If they lose Corbin Burnes,
season's over.
Is it even worth having that conversation? There was nothing to get back on track
and
towards.
You hate to be that dramatic, but you lose your ace. Like, the guy you spent all the money on, the largest contract in team history, the most money you've ever spent.
We have a segment planned for today's show, and I planned it assuming we would have the MRI result by this point, about changing the expectations for this baseball team. Like that's where I was at this morning going into the MRI results that we are still awaiting. And the moment we have them, we will obviously break them down, what it might mean moving forward. So you're going to want to stay with us here all throughout the course of the program. We'll take a quick time out. The phone number for you to join us, 480-864-1060. You can also join us over on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube live stream. John agrees with us. He's okay with Friday being a meltdown and being on the list. We debated it. We had a debate in the pre-show about whether or not it classified
And the reason we debated
it
it is because when that happens, it's a tie game.
Yeah, but you get the first 2 outs, and then you walk the bases loaded with back-to-back 2-out walks, and then you give up the big hit. I think that's a meltdown. Again, it's not your garden variety meltdown.
You did walk every batter of that inning that scored. Like, you gave up the 1 hit.
Yeah, the 1 hit with 2 outs.
You walked the bases loaded. You let off a walk and then got the 2 outs, and then you walked 2 more. It's a meltdown.
Meltdown. Goes on the list. I think we're up to an even 10 now on the meltdown meter for 2025.